welcome to episode 31 of Universal Adapter. This is the show where two Brits, one who stayed put,
That's me.
and one who got out, that's me, discuss the relative merits of our current home countries. Each week we'll pick a new topic and discuss who has it better. This week, while the rest of the world is going football crazy...
Chocolate mad.
Tune. But we are sidestepping that particular sport and talking about a different sport because, quite frankly, we've all heard enough about football, or soccer, as they call it here.
What is football to Canadians? Is it American football?
Yeah, they're thinking of American football.
If you play American football in Canada, is it called Canadian football?
I have no idea. I doubt it, considering the university we went to had an American football team and an Aussie rules football team, and it wasn't called Brummie football.
That is true.
But I feel like Canadian football would just be really polite. They'd just be like, oh, no, you take it. No, you take it. And no one would ever score.
Okay, so is that stereotype actually true then?
Well, actually, no, probably not based on the sport we're about to discuss. That is a Canadian sport. But they are very polite. And they say sorry a lot. And I constantly had to tell people not to apologise. And then the other day, I did it to a customer at work. I had to get her something. And she was like, oh, sorry. And I was like, don't apologise. It's my job. And she was like, yeah, you're right. I don't apologise. I was like, yes.
I imagine that being the first step in a long series of steps, which sort of leads to a culture shift within Canada. That you were the first stone in an avalanche.
I was that wings of a butterfly that sent it all tumbling down. Well, I hope that's not the case. Anyway, that is by the by, because we are putting two sports head to head. I have bought one which is, I was about to say the most stereotypically Canadian sport ever, but it's definitely the most popular one in Canada. I have bought ice hockey, or as they call it here, hockey.
Not Canadian hockey.
Not Canadian hockey, no. In the way we have hockey and ice hockey, they have hockey and field hockey. Okay,
that's an interesting. That does sort of speak to the different, I guess, mindset. So have you seen a hockey game?
Not in its entirety. I have occasionally watched it in the Winter Olympics because it is quite fascinating. But it's not hockey season, I don't think.
Oh, because it's July.
Yeah, it's a bit of the weather's nice. No one wants to go sit by a cold ice rink in July.
That's fair enough. Are there any fun hockey team names in your local area?
The Victoria hockey team is the Victoria Royals.
Fair.
Which kind of makes sense. And I know the Vancouver team is the Vancouver Canucks.
What exactly is a Canuck?
So yeah, I'm not sure if it's Canuck or Canuck. But their picture looks like an angry orca.
Oh, that is an angry orca. Sort of leaping out of the water, and he's got this strange grimace.
Yeah, it's like, Urgh.
So, hockey is an angry sport, yes?
Yeah. I have more to say about it later, but
okay.
It's an aggressive sport, not for the faint-hearted.
Then I would not do well at it.
So that's my communal dish for the potluck. What have you brought with you?
I have bought the opposite of hockey, wherein, as far as I understand it, there is no fighting, and instead people stop for tea. We have the quintessentially English sport, cricket.
Oh, a gentleman's sport. Have you ever seen a cricket game?
No. I've walked past cricket games that have been played. I've seen a cricket game only insofar as I have taken part in cricket games for PE, wherein you want to be the prime position as a person who doesn't really like sport is far left field.
That was always my position in rounders. Very, very little action in that corner.
Exactly. So that's where you can sit and, I don't know, make daisy chains, practice whistling through grass, sneak your Game Boy out with you, play some Pokemon.
Excellent. That's the sort of PE lesson I would have enjoyed.
I mean, yeah, Pokemon also teaches you about teamwork and competition.
Strategy.
Yeah, just without all that pesky running about.
Exactly. Who needs that anyway? We invented cars for a reason. But so we're both discussing sports we haven't actually watched. I think this is going to go very well.
We're discussing the spirit of the sport rather than the real nuts and bolts.
Yeah, we've taken the fun bits of sport, basically, rather than getting bogged down in too many rules and regulations.
Exactly. Shall we crack on with our first round?
Yeah!
All right. In that case, we're going to be talking about the origins of our chosen sports.
Ice hockey. It is descended from field hockey. So, I'll make that very clear. No chicken and egg discussion here. Field hockey came first. But there are basically lots of pictures, basically since pictures were around, of people playing sort of stick and ball games on lakes across Europe. So even though it is a proudly Canadian sport, I don't think they really invented it. I know, controversial first move, because it didn't really gain much of a following until British soldiers moved over to Canada and the United States, and they all bought their stick and ball games. So along with hockey, you can also find hurling in this category, which is an Irish sport, and shinty. And obviously Canada, lots of snow, lots of ice. They were like, oh, let's put this together and give it a whirl on ice. So that's sort of where it began.
Mm-hmm.
But there is also a lot of oral history to suggest that the First Nations people, who also, because they're not exactly difficult shapes to make, had also got a version of like stick and ball games, which they also used to play on ice. So it could be a combination of the two, in that in Europe, they sort of did it when the weather was bad enough, and then they saw the locals doing it over here and were like, well, let's put the two together. But there weren't a lot of rules, in all honesty. Bit of a shambles until 1877, where some students from McGill University, because we all know how much students love rules and regulations, decided to knuckle down and get this sorted, and they wrote a set of rules and they published it in the Montreal Gazette. So actually the rules that they use today are still called the McGill rules, which is quite nice. And they began hosting a yearly game in the Montreal Winter Festival, and this ticked over for about 10 years, where until Lord Stanley Preston, who was the first governor of Canada, visited the Montreal Winter Carnival, and he liked this game so much that he donated a whole bunch of money to have an official league set up. So he really created modern day ice hockey as we know it. But I'm going to say someone else is really responsible, because he was only in this position because Queen Victoria put him in that position. So I'm going to go as far to say, if it wasn't for Queen Victoria, we wouldn't have ice hockey.
Okay, and now that is an excellent mental image of the Queen on skates.
Zipping around.
Or would she be like, this ice hockey is too common for me, I'm going to play ice polo, and then try and ride a horse onto a frozen lake?
Or, I was about to say, or a seal, because they're adapted for ice, but maybe it might be a bit of a slow-paced game. Maybe a moose.
Now that is a very Canadian image.
Queen Victoria on a moose, in a Mountie hat, playing ice hockey.
And who's that on the opposing team? It's all beavers.
Just across the dam. No, you can't get to them. They've dammed up their side of the ice rink.
They're very good on defence, not so much on actual goal scoring. Goal scoring? What's it called?
Yeah, goals, I think.
Good.
Yeah.
We are singularly unqualified to be talking about this.
I did actually try and watch a video about the rules of ice hockey.
When you say try, was it that you were put off by technical difficulties? You got bored, or
I mean, it's not thrilling. But they have little areas called face-off circles, where if there's a misdemeanor and they have to fight over the puck again, they do it in a face-off circle. But like every time they said face-off, I just pictured John Travolta, and then I started thinking of Grease, and then the songs got in my head. So yeah, that's how me and ice hockey got together. But yeah, so basically, it sort of just slowly evolved from people hitting things around. Oh, it's snowing, let's put it on ice. But Queen Victoria really saved the day on this one. How about cricket?
cricket? Well, the earliest first published references to cricket come from the late 1600s, when fines were handed out to people who were skipping church to play. So that's
Amazing.
So that's the first time that we see the word cricket written down. And
I love that cricket was initially a maverick sport.
yeah, it's for those hellions playing cricket, skipping church, heathens. And my issue with finding out about the origin of cricket is that because it happened in the 1600s, and because obviously people quite get into the sports that they like, there seem to be lots of competing and conflicting reports. And so rather than attempt to parse out all the different strands to the story of the origin of cricket, I skipped ahead a few hundred years to what might have been the end of cricket.
Don't even joke about such a thing.
So it's another little story, a more interesting story in my honest opinion, but I'm going to put this out here straight away. I understand that it doesn't quite fit the brief which I set this week. So I'm going into this understanding fully what I'm doing.
Okay.
I'd like you to imagine, if you would, the year 1933.
Yes.
Good. 60 years before Jurassic Park exists, 60 years before I exist.
More notably.
Well, I mean, I feel like more people know Jurassic Park than know me, so yeah, this is the most controversial cricketing story that I could find. And it all started with a tactic called bodyline bowling, which sounds quite dry and crickety. But basically, all it means is the bowler throws the ball directly at the bat's person, at the bat, in an attempt to hit them and hurt them, so that the person batting has to maneuver themselves in such a way or bring the bat up to protect them, so that they're not really striking the ball properly. All they're doing is deflecting it away from them.
Oh.
So it's a pretty sneaky tactic.
That's very sneaky.
And the English team decided to use this tactic against the Australians, because of course it was the Australians.
Yeah. Big rivals.
In this test match in 1933. And they managed to win the game by using what certain people deemed to be unsavoury tactics, and which the Australian Board of Control, the people in charge of cricket in Australia, deemed to be unsportsmanlike.
Oh.
And they called out the English team, or the English captain, as being unsportsmanlike. And he was livid. He refused to play.
That is a bit unsportsmanly.
There was thoughts that the tour of the English team around Australia might be cancelled. And the governor of southwestern Australia even went so far as to intimate to some high-ranking officials in the English government that perhaps if these tensions continued, if this unsportsmanlike behaviour continued, it might even affect trade negotiations and
Jesus.
trade deals
Wow.
between the two countries. And it
Blimey.
wasn't until the Australian Prime Minister had a sit down with this Australian Board of Control, who were in charge of issuing the statement, which called the English unsportsmanlike, and was like, "Hey guys, love what you're doing here, cricket, great, but just so you know, if the English decided to boycott Australian goods, the economic impact on our country would be awful. So let's just have a stop and think about what's actually happening here, right? A man threw a ball at another man. This is like literally playground stuff, and we're almost having a diplomatic incident. Can we just cool it and dial it back a couple of notches?" And so these tensions carried on rising until finally the Australian board were like, "Okay, fine," and they sent another. It was a telegram that they sent in the first instance, which had said the use of this tactic had caused intensely bitter feeling between players and was, in their opinion, unsportsmanlike. They had to issue another telegram, which basically said, "Okay, we still don't like the fact that you're throwing balls at us, but it's not unsportsmanlike. We can carry on playing, but we should definitely talk about this after."
Oh.
And I guess it speaks to the gentlemanly, the polite nature of the game, that was kind of all it took. They just needed to retract the accusation of unsportsmanlikeness, and then things sort of went back to normal. But it was such a little thing, and it went so far, and that's the power of cricket.
Blimey, that's quite dramatic. But I like that you managed to get an exact transcript of what was said by the Australian Prime Minister. That was impressive.
Yeah, no, that was a recording that I just played for you all.
I liked that. To be honest, you had me at, it was a game people used to play to skip church, because I had to shoehorn in a name drop just to make my story interesting. So even though you completely veered off the brief, the slight bit you had that was on the brief, I really enjoyed, so I still think yours is much more interesting.
All right, I mean, I'll take a point if there's a point going.
You earned it.
All right.
I'm like the little prize box
Ooh.
in Mario that opens.
Wait, which Mario? Like Mario Kart?
It's on the Wii, and it's like a little board game, and you go around.
Oh, Mario
and
Party.
it's like, that's the one. You won a prize! And then a point comes out.
Hooray!
Talking about prizes, we are now on to trophy. So the best trophy you can win in your sport.
I am going to talk about a teeny tiny terracotta urn.
Of course you are. Carry on.
So, the Ashes is a tournament, a cricket tournament, England v Australia, again, and I just thought that it was like a weird name that had some, esoteric reason for being called the thing that it was called, which, yes, it is that, but also the Ashes, as well as being the name of the tournament, the Ashes actually exist.
Oh, do they?
So, way back in 1882, the English cricket team are playing the Australian cricket team. For the very first time, the Australians, well, not for the first time the Australians come over, but the Australians come over, and for the very first time they manage to beat England on English soil.
Whoa.
And in the Sporting Times the following day, on the 29th of August 1882, a obituary is published, an affectionate remembrance of English cricket, deeply lamented by a large circle of sorrowing friends and acquaintances. The body will be cremated and the ashes taken to Australia. So it was a good, funny joke that the editor of the Sporting Times, or maybe one of their staff, decided to publish this obituary that English cricket was dead because they'd been defeated by the Australians on England soil. And so there was this final little line, this silly joke about that the body of English cricket was going to be burnt, and then Australia were going to take home the ashes. And so the next time, the following year, when the English team had to embark, they then sort of swapped over. They went to Australia and played them over there. It was dubbed by the sort of English media the quest to reclaim the ashes. And from there, it became a regular thing that this series of games would be played between England and Australia, alternating until the end of time, and that it would be called the Ashes. And when the English team went over to Australia, the English captain, Ivo Bly, he went over to Australia and he was presented with, as I said earlier, this tiny terracotta urn by a small group of women in Melbourne, one of whom he ended up marrying.
Oh, that worked out well, didn't it?
Yeah. And they gave
matchmaking bars.
And they gave him this little urn, which he reputedly had inside it the ashes of a cricket bale, which they'd burned down, as a sort of a bit of a funny joke, a little practical joke / PR stunt. And the English captain, he kept this urn as a gift, and then upon his death, it was given to the Marylebone Cricket Club Museum, which is at Lord's, like the main cricket house pitch.
Arena? I don't know.
So the urn is on display there, and it's not technically given out as a trophy whenever anybody wins the Ashes, but usually because it's quite fragile and little and made of terracotta, and it would be a shame if someone broke it. So usually the teams get little replicas of the trophy to signify just who won and who is the best at cricket, at least until the next time they play.
Ah, I had no idea that's why the Ashes is called the Ashes.
And
because of an offhand joke.
Yeah, it's a joke that got out of hand, which, I mean, if that doesn't explain most of sports.
I liked that, though. I liked the plot twist that he ended up marrying her. That was good.
Yes. I don't know whether because of this meeting, whether they'd met beforehand, whether they already fancied each other, or whether this was their kind of meet cute. I don't think that's ever happened in a rom-com before.
No, but I think they should make this rom-com. I'm surprised it hasn't been made. That is material.
I sort of feel like, as far as movie-making executives go, the idea of cricket and romantic comedy, they don't appeal to the same target demos.
But they did one about Wimbledon.
That is true. Okay, match point. So what's your cool trophy?
I'm a really big fan of this, and I think it's an incredibly Canadian trophy. So I quite like talking about it. So it is called the Lady Byng Trophy, and it is presented each year to a member of the National Hockey League, and it is the player who is judged to have exhibited the best type of sportsmanship and gentlemanly conduct combined with a high standard of playing ability. So it's like the Miss Congeniality Prize of the hockey world. It's basically given to whoever's been the nicest chap throughout the season. And I just think that's a really nice thing. And I think more sports could benefit with this sort of reward. Because I watched a few of the prize-giving ceremonies. And they seem genuinely very excited to win. So it's obviously something that is held with a lot of interest. And yeah, I just think a lot of sports should value this a lot more. Because that's what really annoys me about football players. When they push each other on the pitch, I'm like, now. You are grown men at work. Don't push each other. So I kind of feel that could be extended to them. Lady Byng was a very avid sports fan. She was actually born in England, in Essex, but she moved to Canada because she...
I mean, with a name like Lady Byng, I'm not surprised.
Of course she's British. and she was just a really avid sports fan, and she just thought that sort of behaviour should be rewarded. And a 5-time winner of it is Wayne Gretzky, who is I kind of knew the name, I didn't really know who he was.
Yeah, that's a name I recognise.
Yeah, he's been dubbed the greatest hockey player ever. So he's up there. And yeah, he's won it 5 times, and he's the person who's won it the most times. And he speaks out a lot against fighting in hockey, because it's a kind of controversial subject. Would you want to know a little bit about it?
Yeah, because I was sort of under the impression that that was kind of in the same way that footballers rolling around on the floor, clutching. it's kind of part of the game.
Yeah, so lots of people think they shouldn't do it because it is obviously a very aggressive thing, but some hardcore hockey people are like, it's just part of the passion of the sport. But what they actually do is they have a team member who is called an enforcer or a goon. They are held up for being really big and aggressive, good at hitting people. Yeah, and their job is to intimidate the other team. I like how they were described on one website is that enforcers are typically less gifted in other skill areas of the game than their teammates. Yeah, and they're not paid as much either, so they're essentially like your big friend who you bring along to scare
Bouncers
people.
on skates.
Bouncers on skates. That's essentially what they are. I just find it a really odd concept. Maybe that's because I'm just not a big fan of watching adults fight. But, it just seems like that's just... You'll have all the other ones that are really, really good at hockey, and then just the big one to scare people.
I mean, I guess, yeah, it's when it's part of the game, you have to play, because if you don't, then the other team will take advantage.
I guess so, but it's not like you score any points for the fighting bits. It's sort of like the referee will let them go on a little bit, and then we'll be like, all right, lads, that's quite enough now.
But if you field like a bunch of small, very good hockey players, and then the other team just has like some big guys with sticks, surely it's only a matter of time before your team gets beaten up so much that they're not quite so good at hockey anymore.
Yeah, that's true. I guess...
or is that not quite how the fights end? I mean, I know they're not like fight to the death.
Yeah, it's not Gladiator. Not quite that violent. No, they just sort of hit each other a bit until they're told to stop, or for some reason decide to stop. But it's quite, because they're obviously on skates, there's a lot of spinning around, which is quite entertaining. But the crowd goes Larry for it, and they all played in a big plastic tank essentially. Yeah. I think that's to stop the puck flying out and hitting the crowd, because that would hurt. And they all get up and bang on the glass. And we're like, ah! Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Okay. Well, I think what this is teaching me is that I think I need you to go to a hockey match.
Oh, I definitely want to go. I mean, my curiosity
back.
Trumps my disinterest in sports. So I will like to go along and have a look-see. Now we have to decide.
Yeah, I feel like mine's more mean-spirited. Mine's more mean-spirited, and yours is a lot nicer, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I was going for, because I was hoping your moral compass would point you in my direction.
I think you're right. I think I like the idea that, because like you said, you don't get any points for fighting, but you don't really get any points for being good, like a good person either. So it's good. I think it's commendable that Lady Bing was like, Bing. I assume that's what she said. I'm glad that she said, no, this should be rewarded and give an incentive for these hockey players to be a good role model.
We all need more Lady Bings in the world.
I think so.
Brings us neck and neck.
Ooh.
But before we launch into our final round, if you've been enjoying our podcast so far and would like to download it, you can find us on Apple Podcasts. Just look for Universal Adapter Podcast. You can also find us under that name. We are on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and we're also on Twitter. We are at UniAdapter.
You can also send us an email to universaladapterpodcast@gmail.com.
And if you can rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, we would love you forever, because it helps people find us. So that would be fantastic. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and also, if you like the show and you want to recommend it to your friends, but you're like, how do I get my friend to listen to half an hour to 40 minutes of a podcast? Do I need to invite them on a road trip to somewhere and just kind of stick it on in the car? Or do I need to place earbuds in their head while they sleep and then play it for them so that in some subconscious level they start to enjoy the show? Well, you could do either of those things, but there is a better, less creepy way. Because if you go over to our Universal Adapter YouTube, Sarah has uploaded some lovely highlights, some little clips that are only 2 to 3 minutes long. And if there's any way to hook people, to get people interested in, these guys sound like they are fun and knowledgeable. I want the whole experience. Whack them over some of those clips.
Definitely. I would appreciate it.
A little amuse-bouche for their ears. Wonderful. And back to the show.
Final round.
Final round. And for this, our final round, we are going to be talking about the silliest words.
Yay!
Because all sports come with some kind of terminology, some specialized vernacular to stop new people joining the elite club.
But this could be like your insider guide, how to blend in with the hockey or the cricket fans.
Yes. Although apparently to blend in with the hockey fans, just get really excited for fighting. Sarah, what good words have you brought for us?
Okay, so mine are more phrases.
Okay.
I found 3. Because
So
I
did
liked them so much. Oh! What a coincidence. That wasn't even planned. Do you wanna guess what they mean?
Sure.
Cool. So the first one, warm up the bus.
Is it a fun song that you sing when you're on your way to a hockey game?
Oh, I mean, I see where you went with that, but you're wrong. Nice thought process, though. Excellent. No, it's not a nice thing. It's when the outcome of a game has pretty much been decided, and the visiting team basically looks like they're definitely going to lose. So the crowd will ask the team to warm up the bus for the trip home.
Oh no!
It's not a nice thing at all.
Lady Bing would not be pleased.
She would not. She would frown on that one. So number 2 is beat him like Grandma does an old throw rug.
Is that another crowd-based chant when there's a fight happening?
It just kind of sounds like an old drinking song, doesn't it? It's not so much to do with fighting. It's a reference to a goalie being hit or otherwise scored on in an embarrassing manner.
Oh dear.
Yeah, so like, I don't know, he's looking the wrong way and it just wishes in. Basically, when the goalie just screws up a little bit, that's what he's said to have done.
Okay, and what's number 3?
It needs a bit of imagination.
Okay, I'm there.
Top shelf, up where Uncle Bob keeps the bourbon bottle.
Is that when somebody scores in the top corner of the net, or when the puck goes sailing over the glass tank?
Oh, first answer.
Oh,
You can have that.
that.
Yeah, it's when it's where the shot basically goes under just under the crossbar, so the goalie was never gonna get it. But there we go. You're infiltrated already.
So is that something that like a commentator would say? Is that something that the crowd would shout?
Yeah, so there's like little phrases for what's happened in the game. So that's not like official terminology. It's just sort of like.
Mm-hmm.
So first one, warm up the bus. You shout that one. And then the other 2 are just like, yeah, phrases for what's happened.
Ooh. Would you like to hear my silly words?
I would love to.
Okay, word number 1 is googly.
A googly. I think I know what this is.
Okay, go on.
Other than being a type of eye, it's to do with the throw, and I think the throw has like a special spin on it.
Essentially, that's about as much as I could discern.
Ah, I didn't think I knew anything about cricket. I don't even know where that came from.
The way that I made sense of it for myself is I've called it in my notes like the red shell of cricket bowls. Like when you're playing Mario Kart and the shell curves into you and then hits you and then people overtake you. It's like that, as far as I understand.
Okay, interesting. I get it.
Although I do like the idea that it's to do with googly eyes, and the bowler secretly sticks a pair on the ball, so that the batter is overcome with empathy, and they can't bring themselves to hit the ball.
This little face just comes towards it, being like, ooh.
Okay, so that was googly, and number 2, baggy green.
A what?
A baggy green.
A baggy green. Oh. Is it where there has been a lot of rain, so the pitch is waterlogged and it's all sodden and you can't play?
Unfortunately not.
Oh.
Baggy green is the name of the caps worn by the Australian cricket team.
The caps? Is it hats?
They're big baggy green hats that they wear.
Oh, with the corks on.
No, they're just big kind of like mushroom heads. To continue Mario plus cricket, like Toad in Mario has a big mushroom on his head.
Excellent. That would be fun if they actually had big mushrooms.
And very finally, a sticky wicket. What is a sticky wicket?
It can be used if you're in a bit of a problematic situation.
That's what it's come to mean, but in a cricketing way.
Is it when you hit the wicket with the ball, but that bit at the top doesn't fall off, so you don't get the point?
Unfortunately, no. So the sticky wicket is all about the issues of playing on a wet pitch.
Oh, that's irritating.
And so this is my own personal definition. When the grass is wet, the balls can bounce erratically.
Oh.
Resulting in a sticky wicket.
And no one likes an erratic ball.
Exactly. So there we are. Those are the 3 that I brought to the table. I mean, you got one of those.
Yeah, and you got one of mine. That didn't help us decide, did it?
Yours seemed to have been more imaginative. Yours were like little stories, little poems about hockey. Like there were characters introduced. Who is Uncle Bob?
Is he related to Grandma, or is it the other side of the family?
Yeah, how is his drinking problem? Like, why does he feel the need to hide the bourbon? Is he okay? Uncle Bob, why don't you call anymore? He used to come to hockey all the time. I haven't seen him back here in a while. Uncle Bob.
Now I just feel bad for Uncle Bob.
I did ask for silly terminology, and you brought me a heartbreaking story full of tragedy and despair.
True. I think then Googlies, baggy greens, and sticky wickets might have taken it.
All right, just keep it light.
Keep it light. Well, good job, old chap, is all I have to say. And good game.
Good game.
Well, excellent. Well done.
What can I say? I know a lot about cricket. Okay, I will say this for this particular episode. When I was revising, when I was doing my research, when I was in different countries, and I had the issues where, things would be in a different language and stuff like that, it made it quite difficult to do research. I felt the exact same way trying to learn about cricket.
There are so many words that you never use.
Because usually I spend like a couple of hours making sure that I've got all my notes in order, that I know what's what. But after a couple of hours of cricket investigation, I was still in exactly the same place.
If you want anything more, or actually want to play with these games, you might want to consider further research. But I feel like we did a good enough job. For introductory level ice hockey and cricket.
Yes, beginner's basics.
Thank you very much to all our listeners for joining us. Yeah, we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, see you in a fortnight.
Bye.
Bye.